Morning, campers. I wanted to do a quick vlog on Ibrahim, the Palestinian professor who lives in England, and Brian and I interviewed 2 weeks ago. Basically, I twittered about him. If anybody wants to follow me on Twitter, oh gosh, I don't remember my name on Twitter. One sec. It is at Christine Hart PI. So yeah. So I updated that he was stuck in Palestine. The authorities allowed British nationals and American nationals to come through the Rafah crossing, which is the way he normally comes in and out of Palestine, see his family. He brought his children there for a holiday and has got trapped with his extended family, and he's there with his children. And so he was due to go out via the Rafah crossing. I posted something about him on Twitter, and the BBC picked it up, and they contacted me and said, could I pass his phone number, which I did ask, but he didn't want to. So I thought maybe that's because, he thought it was some kind of setup, or the BBC, of course, are the British state. I spoke to the Mail. This is because, I only have certain contacts. I spoke to the Mail online, and they didn't want it unless there was a picture of his family. Meanwhile, Sky came along and he spoke straight to them. Now, I don't know if that has stopped him coming out or not, because you have to think about who Sky are. Also, he believed that I passed his mobile number to Sky, which I never would. So I think phones are being they're being listened into, which I happen to know the investigations company, Prevail, their ex-military private investigations company. They had a contract with another private investigations company in the States to listen in, and it was paid for by Rishi Sunak. They were listening into everybody's phones in the Ukraine. So they pick up keywords. So this is how they've arrested the poor lady, she's not a teenage, 22-year-old girl who was arrested for, again, appearing on TV and posting on social media. So they're monitored in that way, and then singled out. So I don't know whether he's been picked up, but he hasn't got out yet. So word from his son, he hasn't got out. He's stuck there with his children. The south of Gaza is under bombardment. Internet has gone dead. I think they had their electricity. Definitely last night it was cut off. So that's the update there. So he's stuck in there. They have now shut the Rafah crossing. You can go back and see my interview with him. I might retitle that, but it's just further on in videos. So I titled it Sinister Hunger Games. I'll retitle that and call it Palestinian Man Stuck. I think that's best. He's become a friend, so I'm personally worried about him. I found him through another friend who was Palestinian and wanted to know, was there anyone out there that would talk to me? So that's how I found him. So prayers for him right now. They've shut the Rafah crossing. I don't know what's going to happen. They are carpet bombing at the moment. I really think this is going to kick off World War III once Iran gets involved. And it's really a bad situation because we have a huge population of Muslims in this country, they're inflamed. They're seeing dead children. Well, I mean, I'm inflamed seeing dead children. You know, it's pretty it's pretty it's pretty horrific to sorry about that glitch. It's pretty horrific to see dead children constantly. I mean, the world fussed about Ukraine and rightly so, but I know there's marches, but it's like the people in power, I personally think they've been taken over by something that's non-human. The deep state and its minions, like Rishi Sunak, who have loyalty to Israel, are the ones who have got the power, and the rest of us are more or less on a lockdown, which we will be on a lockdown again soon. So this is what's going to happen. Of course, Russia will then join in with Iran, and then China will step in, and that will usher in a new world order. But most of us have been under that new world order for a long, long time. They've just warmed up now, and they're going to include everybody. So everybody is going to feel the targeting that only certain people have felt up till now. The whole world is going to feel that targeting, that feeling of something evil being in control, that feeling of being oppressed by something really dark and evil that has control of the planet. So that will usher in a new world order, and it will be a communist new world order, but of course not for the elites. It will just be for we the slaves. We'll have that. Some of us live under that anyway, but that will be brought in across the board, and then that will lead to a time where, as it says in the Bible, Satan will be loosed for a season, where the planet will become very, very dark. It will become just the same as Georgia was in 1984. We will be slaves. We won't be allowed to say this, that, or the other. We will be on a lot of lockdowns. They'll say that we have to have the lockdowns because of the chaos on the streets. There'll probably be some bombings going on, so we all have to be on lockdown. There'll be new laws brought in, and that's why they've shipped in a lot of refugees, because they want this to happen. They've organised it. I noticed on Twitter now they've brought back Tommy Robinson and Katie Hopkins because they're pro-Israel. So they're there to stir up hatred, Muslim v, which is going to be, I think, Muslim v what they see as Christian, but it's actually not. They just want a race war, really, on the streets of London. This is what they want, to create chaos with one hand, and then with the other hand, they bring in the antidote, which is what they want to do all along, which will be a reduction of our freedoms, being locked down. I'm sure they'll toss a few viruses into that as well, and then we'll have to live under that oppression, which will be like living in that. If anybody's seen the film 1984, read the book, they should pull it out again. And it was interesting. In that movie, the Richard Burton character is talking to the John Hurt character, and he says humanity has now gone extinct. We're in control. So it's actually quite interesting that he showed that it's almost like a hybrid race that's come in, that are loyal to something else, and they are not loyal to humanity. Humanity to them are like cockroaches, animals, and it's no point. Some people are bizarrely joining in with this, but they are often seeded and they're hybrid minions. But a lot of people naively, in their hatred of Muslims, they're joining in with that. Please slap yourself and wake up. This force that's coming is against anything human, and if you're not one of them, then you're just going to live under slavery, under an oppression, and they're going to bring in the Chinese systems of social credit, cashless society, smart cities. But that sounds okay compared to what will actually be brought in. Really, really dark times and a lot of, you know, now show your papers. And people wonder about this and they say, that sounds like Nazi Germany. That sounds like the Nazis. They've gone now. However, this is a force that is linked to something that isn't human, that the Nazis were interacting with. They were calling it through portals, and they were calling all sorts of things through portals. And some of it was good, but then the darkness came in, and that brought about the gas chambers. We can see similar to that now going on with the torture of children in Palestine. That we don't care, you're not human attitude. And that, even though the Nazis lost the war, why isn't that moving? Even though the Nazis lost the war, that energy then continued on. It just merely swapped into another meat suit. So it's the same energy, but it jumps meat suits. Yeah? Can you understand that? And it oppresses us in the same way. So you can kind of smell Nazism in the air. It is in the air. It's that same energy. It's probably best to call it what it is, but I'm not going to confuse matters by bringing that in. But it is something that's come intra-dimensionally. It's an intra-dimensional force. And it has had control of planet Earth for a long, long time. It's just because it's nearing the end times of this planet, it's increasing its control to try and get a grip on it. So the frequency here is going to be lower, even though in some aspects our consciousness is increasing into cosmic consciousness. The frequency of the planet is lowering. So that's why you've got all the blood sacrifices going on, all the pain, misery, harvesting, because it harvests that. And some people have lived lives where they haven't known this energy. They haven't known about it. And they've believed what it spoon feeds them in the media. Oh, there's evil over there. You know, good people have good things and life is fair, make it fair. But it's actually not. Actually, if you move outside that bubble, you can see it's completely chaotic and actually highly dangerous. Really bad things happen to people here. Very, very painful and unjust things happen to people here. And there's masses of suffering, but they keep that out of sight, keep the majority of people in Disneyland bubble. So they're still seeing through a lens of Disney World right now as we approach this dark age where Satan is going to be loose for a season. And you'll see hard-heartedness in the hearts of men towards women and children. That will go on. And that's all biblical as well. Please do pick up your Bible, have a read. So that's happening. It's all predicted. So it's going to be really, really dark times ahead. And the only thing you can look forward to really is connecting supernaturally, because that ability, that gateway is going to increase. So my advice is to begin to pray, begin to read the scriptures. The Psalms are fantastic, and to connect spiritually, because then you'll be taken in the rising up of souls after we're all wiped out and the planet implodes. If you're connected spiritually, you'll rise. If you haven't been, then you'll just be discounted along with the worldly lovers, the materialistic lovers, the ones that don't even give a nod in the direction of God. They're just going to be wiped out. There's going to be a situation where it's taking no prisoners. They won't be allowed to rise because it will take with it the poison of this planet. So there'll be a cutting off when the planet implodes. And at the moment, there's a lot of these UFOs. They're going to increase because there's a lot of what is known as the Anunnaki who are returning to look at us, to observe us. They seeded this planet a long time ago. So there's these different types of Anunnaki. We call them different things. We call them ET. We call them aliens. They are returning in what's known as light ships to interact with humanity because they're very curious about events here at the moment. They're very curious about how humanity has remained like an animal and treats each other like an animal. Even though we've advanced in technology and art and poetry and literature, we still tear each other apart. Even the little ones, we tear them apart as they come here. But, little ones are sexually abused, used for adult sexuality. Little ones are bombed and babies covered in ash, and still other human beings are, on social media going, oh, they deserve that. I mean, these are people in quite high up positions. I get attacked on LinkedIn whenever I say something about poor people in Gaza. Literally underneath comes people that are very wealthy, powerful people, and they deserve it. And you're like, hang on, but it's dead babies covered in ash and really in bad states and burnt skin, and they're like, yeah, they deserve it. It's like, whoa. So this is going on at the moment, and it's quite shocking. It's quite shocking for people that haven't known that kind of hardness, and they tend to then think, oh, what's going on? It must be not as that, but it is that. You do have that hardness of the heart. If people have to dehumanize other people to target them. People have to. I was talking about Graham Johnson in my last video. He has targeted me and said things about me that aren't true. And I was informed by the private investigator, Gavin Burrows, oh, that's because he knows you went for therapy in the Priory. And that is because, you talk about spiritual matters. I hate to break it to Graham, but he's old now. He's in the winter of his life. He's standing at a bus stop going to a certain place, and he has to get on that bus, and the destination of that bus is the other realms, I'm sorry to say. So it's great. People sound great when they say, oh, there's no such thing as that. I'm very grounded, and you're a bit woo-woo talking about other realms. But I find that very weird, because don't they realize, we'll just fly by the next years of people in their 50s will fly by, and next thing they will be 80, and it will go like months, the years. They'll be 80, and they'll be at that bus stop, stepping on that bus to go to that other realm. It's strange how people deny it constantly and say, oh, it's craziness to believe in it. It's strange, because these are the very people that will be left behind if they don't start acknowledging God and spirit, because they're not letting the poison of the planet rise higher. So interestingly, he demonized me before he targeted me, because they have to. Oh, she's a nutbag. She's not really a human. So by doing that, he can then go into court and lie and say the thing about Sienna Miller and not care. And I remember him when I went to dinner with him. This is weird. He lies that I threatened and abused him. We were having dinner all last summer. Some of it with James Hanning, who said to me, I don't know why he's saying that. He's the ex-editor of The Independent on Sunday. Some of it was with Bruce Goodison. And I remember over the steak and champagne and cocktails, Graham said, oh, the Sun should have stuck up for you. The Sun should have stuck up for you. So that was him trying to offload his guilt. It wasn't me lying that I know it was Susie, but I know you can't fight back because you've got no money at the moment. And if you try to, we'll just dismiss you by saying you're in the Priory and you believe in other realms. So he had to blame the Sun for that. Well, no, it was him going in there and making these accusations, knowing that the Sun are covering up phone hacking. Clearly, they phone hacked Sienna Miller. The Sunday Mirror are covering up phone hacking of Fiona Whiteman. But I'm an easy piñata. It doesn't matter. I was gonna, get stuck in with J.S. Garrett and Brian Barrett and do energy reversals, and then I realised about from looking the videos of Palestine that we can't tit for tat and tit for tat. It's not how we're told to live. Jesus Christ came here to tell us. He gave the blood sacrifice. He came into flesh. He gave of his blood. He knew that it was an important thing to do because this is a place where blood sacrifices are made. The Zionists who are in control, they're making blood sacrifices of the Palestinians. So these entities, that's what they want. So he gave of his blood for us as a sacrifice to us. So you have to, when you get attacked by people, when people are targeting you and you feel the unjustness of it all, is not to think, well, I wonder how I can get my own back now. I wonder how I can hurt them. This is what is happening all over the world right now. That's why it's on fire, and the fire is going to gather flames and it will devour the whole earth, because humanity and humans haven't learned what Jesus told us, and that was to turn the other cheek. Not turn the other cheek, but to forgive, and to forgive straight away. I had a really strong lesson in this, and I'm glad I have now, because they say we're born into life situations to teach us, and I was born into having parents that whipped me, used me for sex, and I had to forgive that. Obviously, you can't move forward if you stay in hate. I stayed a lot of years in hate, many, many years in hate. I found it hard to deal with my hate. It was very strong and it devoured me. I wasn't able to move forward in life. I was marinated in hate. I couldn't see outside of me. Other people's problems seemed very petty compared to what I'd been through. I wanted to connect with others that have been through what I'd been through. There weren't many. I think that's why probably I connected with serial killers, because serial killers have been through heinous child abuse and have acted it out. That's very clear. I have seen that, such as Kenneth Bianchi, sexually abused by his adoptive mother. It's very clear to see what's gone on with these people. I often think, had I have been a man, I have ended up a serial killer, but I'm a woman, so I don't have that testosterone that pushes me in the direction of physically acting out things. I don't have that. I conceive with hatred, but I don't have that acting on it. Mine will turn against me and cause depression. So I've worked with that and now realize that forgiving your enemies, forgiving those that are targeting you, even in very callous ways, where they're treating you like you're not a human being or you're not equal to them, you're like a cockroach, to forgive them that, because we're all actually brothers and sisters under the skin. To do that to someone else, you're doing it to yourself. So it will hamper your soul's growth, to say the least, and it rebounds in so many ways, and it draws up karma, and it draws up you getting back the same kind of suffering as you've put out. For instance, I bring up Graham Johnson. He's a great example. I know there's two people doing films about him right now, and apparently the working title of one of them is The Devil, but in, I think, Greek terminology or something like that. And I forget the point I was trying to make. Oh yes, they were talking to me about the Stephen Houghton thing, whereas he was part with other people, with I think one other person apparently. I'm not up with the details on it, but you know, a 15-year-old child was given a gun to make a BBC documentary and paid £50, and he ended up in prison for 5 years. And it's just things like that, to think, oh, that boy who isn't human. He's just a street kid. He's just a cockroach. Doesn't matter. And that's happening out in Palestine. They're not human. You see it all over, especially on LinkedIn. And these are people that are very well to do. It's not shocking to me because I grew up with parents that were doing that to me, abusing me. They had friends who partook on that. So I've seen that face of people, and it's a kind of a shutting down of who they are, and a kind of letting something in that is really dark and non-human. And it sentences them, if they're not connected to this system. But the system itself is a non-human system. So even though there's hybrids of this energy, if you are part human, you can't really join with it. So you're just being used. And so the antidote to it, and the antidote for seeing, and you see it in the Palestinians, who my son actually informed me, they have the closest DNA to the original biblical Jews. And it's quite interesting because, over time I've heard people talk about chosen people. That irritates me because I think, hang on, I don't like that. Because I grew up with, you were born out of wedlock. Oh, you're not really a person. We were born in wedlock. We're sort of above you. With that whole thing shoved down my throat constantly. And I don't like to hear of certain races or people saying that, we're the chosen. We're close to God. I really object to that. However, watching the Palestinians under the bombing of children and seeing them call out for God, I think, well, they are so much better than me, better than all of us. If my son was killed and bombed in front of me, I would not be calling out for God and saying God is great. I would be, I would just dissolve into hatred, but I would be cursing God, actually. I mean, I've done it in the past about being in poverty. I've cursed God. I've actually imagined Jesus on the cross and spat at that image. I've raged, against God. It's a terrible thing to do, but that when I feel really got at and desperate and really scared, that's what I do. And I noticed there was a Palestinian man who people came to get him and said, your son is dead. And he went running into this place where they had the bodies. People came with him, and he pulled open the kind of drawer, makeshift kind of drawer, looked into it, and there was his son. And his first reaction, he cried, he started wailing, and it just lasted for a minute. And then he started screaming in fear. And he just looked at, and it was like he was in a nightmare. His eyes were full of terror, and he was screaming as if he'd seen Satan himself. And that is the kind of terror that I sometimes feel and have experienced through my life, that kind of fear. And it makes me hate God, because you think, well, why have I had to go through that? Why hasn't that person who thinks life is great gone through that? And what they do through that fear, they call out for God and they pray, and that is the right way to go. When I was made homeless back in 2018, I think it was, I was in a position of terror and thought I'm going to end up in a shop doorway begging. I was terrified of the cold. That was my main thing. I didn't mind about, you're supposed to put your possessions into storage and get taken to a hostel. That was like 2 weeks away, and I didn't have the money to put my stuff in storage. So I thought, well, what will I take in my carrier bag? Photo albums, laptop. And I just looked at my stuff and I thought, it's just a load of shit anyway. It doesn't matter. So I'd come to terms with that. But I was really, really scared of the cold, and that really weighed on me and made me feel so much fear. And I was just in so much fear. I was literally curled in a ball each day. I couldn't move. I just thought, I don't know what to do to get myself out of this. I couldn't move. And I had someone from a charity come to see me and was literally saying, well, get up at this certain time, you have your shower, have something to eat. And I was writing it down in a notebook and looking up at him. What time do I have my shower? And then what time do I eat? I'd gone to that position of being, I just couldn't function. I was just in fear. I was totally terrified. And I really related to that. My son hasn't been murdered, but I really related to that man's fear of that point, that terror of life itself. And when you get to that point, a lot of people then want to do the tit for tat. Who's done this to me? I have to get back at them. I have to try and destroy them back. But of course, I mean, my position, I believe it was brought about by Graham. But I remember not feeling hatred towards him. Because I see him. I've known him for many, many years, since I was like 20s. And I see that he's just being used. So I didn't have that hatred there. So I couldn't even turn to hatred. And I literally didn't know where to go. So I became this like really terrified creature that was just numb. I became like a rock, and I knew I couldn't do anything, which was really bad because I had my son to look after. And somebody on the internet, it was in a group, and I'm in lots of magic groups. I find magic interesting. I study the Kabbalah and the Keys of Enoch and, all these occult books. I've been into the occult since I was a kid, and probably not been accepted into this world. And so I was in lots of magic groups, and I was talking about my situation, saying, oh, pray for me. And then somebody came forward, and I don't even know if it was a man or a woman, and they gave me some psalms to pray. And literally in between, there was passwords of the psalms to pray to these two angels. They were Haniel and Sichiel, I think. They definitely had the L on the end. And the psalms, one was 23, I think one was 51, 71, 91. If anybody wants this, I'll pass some on to them. And I went out into the park and I shouted those psalms, and I eventually got where I am now, which is temporary, but it's a roof, and they worked. They worked. And so the antidote for this, the antidote for terror, the antidote when we're splattered and hit, and is to forgive, because what's attacking you doesn't know any better. It is overcome by the darkness. It doesn't know any better, and it doesn't see you as human at this point. So there's no point in hating back on it. That just inflames. It draws in other people. What you can do is try and turn from that and then turn to praying and ask what you need to get through this. Like, I needed a roof over my head. I didn't want to be in the cold on the street. I was terrified of cold. And I don't know why that is, because I grew up in an adoptive home. We never had the heating on all through the winter. It was freezing. We weren't allowed the heating on, so we just had to wear layers. So you'd think I'd be used to it, but it scares the shit out of me. I won't have the heating all winter now. I really don't like getting cold. It puts me in fear. I don't know why. So the antidote for the Palestinians are showing us the way, in a way, because they're praying when all around them, their families, their sons, their daughters, mothers, fathers are being, which is all you have really in life, are being torn from them. And they're praying. I mean, it's unreal. There was a lovely thing, a guy speaking on a loudspeaker, which I twittered, in obviously Arabic. And he was calling, they've turned our lights off, but we have God, and God is a stronger. And he was singing all this, but somebody translated it. And it was really amazing, this absolute passion for God. I mean, even when you're under a barrage, and it really does work. What they probably know is it really does work. I'm hoping that we don't see them obliterated, all of them obliterated in front of our eyes, which I'm scared is what's going on. I said to my Palestinian friend, I wish they all could get out and go to the desert. And he said, are you kidding me? That's what Israel wants. And I said to him, but they'll be safe. They're not going to be dead. And he said, but that's what... And I said, look, does it matter, excuse me, about land? Because really, we don't have a land. I mean, being English, somewhat Irish, half and half, I don't feel I have a land. I don't feel where I grew up in Hayes, it's now Indian. So I don't feel that I have a land. And does it matter? Because we leave it very soon. All this worship for land and, you know, country. We don't have countries anymore. We're all together. We don't have countries. Certainly I don't feel I have a country or land. But when I go to Ireland, I feel somewhat akin to the land. But I don't think that my English side has a land. I think probably England's been sold out many, many years ago. And so now we're just wandering orphans of Europe, and at least the Palestinians, if they were in Egypt or whatever, would be safe. Does it really matter, that strip of land? I mean, for God's sake. So I don't know what's going to happen out there, but I really pray for Ibrahim that he survives. He's still stuck there. And just anybody, if you're going through horror, which, yeah, it can be horror when you get that whole force of it, because it is, it's not human now. Never mistake it for being human. Because I was very fascinated by this force, I'd literally had it visited on me as a kid. My adoptive father used me for sex. I mean, that's not supposed to go on. I knew it wasn't his human side. My mother whipped me. She had a feather duster with a bamboo cane. She used to use a bamboo cane and make me lie face down on the bed, naked as well, which, yeah, you can draw any conclusion from that. And whip the backs of my legs, and not just slightly, she gave it her full force, so it was literally, the skin was welts, really like rooched, like there were ridges in it for like weeks and weeks after, and it would be burning. I wouldn't be able to go to school. When I put my socks on for school, it really hurt. My dress came down and I was told not to show it. So I had to work out what that was, why it was targeting me, and what it was. And so I went on to study Brady, who showed the same cruelty to children, that he killed them. I then went on to study Kenneth Bianchi, who showed that cruelty again to young women that nobody wanted. I totally related to them because I was that unwanted girl. And what is it targeting it? And when I sat face to face with Bianchi, I felt it. He showed it to me just for a fraction of a second. But I literally felt I was either going to wet myself or pass out. And it was non-human. And it came at me like 1,000 razor blades. It's above us in the food chain. It reminded me as well of a time when I went to a zoo, and I was busy showing my press pass, and they were like, oh yeah, you can come in and feed the lions. So I went in to feed a lion, and my son waited outside, and it was terrifying. It was terrifying. The lion went crazy. It didn't recognize me, you see, and I thought, it probably thought I was going to eat its meat. It went crazy at me, and there was a barbed wire in between us, but that was all there was, and I shit myself. And that was the same energy. It was I mean, the lion, isn't it? So add in an intelligence with that, and you can feel what I felt coming out of Bianchi. He proudly hosts that. When I met Ian Brady, it was like he had hosted and it had left. But with Bianchi, it was still in there. That's why he had his strength. It had a lot. It's got a lot of strength, a lot of psychic ability to attack. He's attacked me many times, and I literally had to magic up to be able to deal with it. I literally had to start using sigils, to start calling on Shemyaza, working with entities to protect myself from Bianchi. So he's still got that in him, whatever it is. When I was introduced to Sheikh bin Halimar, and he told me to meet him in a dream, which I did. He's a bit of a jinn master. He showed me a portal. I, of course, I'm incredibly curious, went through the portal and went into their realm, which Brian Barrett calls the Kaf. And I couldn't go in as a human. The gatekeeper told me, you can't go there as a human, you have to shapeshift into something. He turned me into a spider in the sand. Obviously not going to go anywhere like that. I complained about that, and I got turned into a bird, and I flew over their world. And when I flew over a certain part, I felt the Shaitan jinn, who had that like a million razor blades coming at you feeling. It's actually horrific. I believe that I know that I did a shamanic journey at a later date where I was taken in a carriage to see Iblis. And Iblis lives in a castle in that realm, which Brian Barrett calls the Kaf, and you have to pass over the Shaitan jinn to reach Iblis. Now, they surround his castle, and when I passed over, I felt that a million razor blades feeling that I got when I was face to face with Bianchi, and it is, I guess it's coming from them. I mean, it's coming from them. So they surround us. Yeah, I mean, I don't know much, and I don't think anybody knows much. Some people say it's reptilian. I mean, I haven't seen their faces, but I'm guessing they're not going to appear humanoid. So it really needs somebody to come forward and write about this, write about the invisible in a sane way. We've got a lot of people saying they're channeling Palladians and writing a load of crap. Some people have really good information. But I would like to read a book where everything's laid out for me, everything from start to finish. But definitely 100% the deep state and the controllers of planet Earth are seeded with these, they are bloodline of these entities. So they're like half and half. And they don't mean us well. And the rest of us, if we're sick, if we have negative energy, we can end up channeling that. And you can channel that through hating your enemies, and then they gather momentum, and then before you know it, you have one of them inside of you, which happened to Bianchi. But it can be in a lesser way. It just makes you hurt other people for the cause, such as Graham Johnson. So the only way we can deal with them is to forgive, is to pray for them. Literally, pray for them. Literally, feel love in your heart for them, let it swell up, and then send it to their heart. Don't think hateful things about them, and ask God to bless them with good things. And this is how you remain Christ-centered. This is how you remain at a point that when horror happens to you, you know your heart is clean, and then you can ask God for things and pray the Psalms. So this is how humanity is going to be tested, because it's going to all end up being targeted. It won't just be the few, it will be across the board. And this is the energy that came in that wiped out the ancient Egyptians, that wiped out various beings that were very Christ-connected anybody that showed the light and was awakening earth gets murdered, basically. I mean, look at Max Spears. So this is the only antidote. Because it's right near end times, it's very crucial to start praying and connect with Spirit. Anyway, I've gone on a bit too long. Thank you for listening. And yeah, I would say let's pray together, but I haven't got my Bible to hand. And if I move, then I will pretty much destroy my connection here. So I will try and pull it up. And I will try and find a prayer. Okay, so this is Psalm 23. So if you want to pull it up on Google, we'll just say it together. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the path of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. That is a very curative psalm. There are there's different versions, isn't there? So I have basically picked up okay, that's the same. I think I picked up a King James version, but there's loads of different versions. Some of them are better. Seems like all King James here on the internet. It's weird. I actually like the different versions better, but never mind. Oh, never mind. This is the different one. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Only a shepherd could write Psalm 23, and David was a shepherd. The Lord is the shepherd of his people, and they are his sheep. So David said, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. In eastern lands, a shepherd goes before his flock, he leads them. They know his voice and follow him. So the sheep in this beautiful psalm, the flock of the Lord, are those who follow him. Jesus said, as we read in John 10:27, my sheep hear my voice, and I know them, and they follow me. Are you a child of God? Then you can repeat the 23rd Psalm and know that it is yours. It was written for you. All believers can say, we are his people and the sheep of his pasture. We do not naturally belong to the Lord's flock. We are orphans and need to be brought into the fold of the true shepherd. We were orphans. We did not belong to God's flock, but through the death of his Lamb, we are clothed in the robe of his righteousness and are able to enter the true fold. Our Saviour is not only the Lamb, he is the shepherd too, the good shepherd who giveth his life for his sheep. The picture of the divine shepherd leading his flock fills the first four verses of Psalm 23. There is a sort of double progress in these verses which rises from memories of his care in the past, the experiences of God's present care for us, and our hope for the future. In other words, what was, what is, and what will be. The other part of the picture in these 4 verses gives the different methods that God uses in leading his flock, or might say the various regions through which he leads them are described in order. And there are 3: rest, work, and sorrow. Rest, strange to say, in the past, work in the present, and sorrow, the valley of the shadow still to come. The psalmist puts rest and refreshment first because this is the way God deals with us so often. His blessings span the years. When we look back over life, the trials are outweighed by his love. Weeping may endure for a night, but joy cometh in the morning. No one can rest in mind and heart until the weight of a guilty conscience is removed. But God heals the troubled spirit when he forgives our sins. In spiritual communion with him, the hungry heart finds food that satisfies. It feeds upon the word of God, and the thirsty soul drinks deep from the cool, still waters. And by these blessings, to which the great shepherd leads us, we find our souls restored, the natural life invigorated, the spiritual life reborn. The restored soul is then led onto another stage in God's plan for his life. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. That is, God leads us into work, into service. Rest in the green pastures and refreshment by the still waters are to fit us for work. In the gospel plan, works do not precede but follow rest. The restoration of the soul comes first, then the works of righteousness. We are not saved by our works, but we work because we are saved. We are not justified by works, but for works. As Paul puts it, for we are his workmanship, created in Christ Jesus unto good works, which God hath before ordained that we should walk in them. Faith is the good shepherd, does not make void his law. On the contrary, his death for the sheep makes it forever sure. Do we then make void the law through faith? I'll see as possible. And then he answers his own question. God forbid we establish the law. And now the shepherd leads on, not only beside the still waters of rest, but through trouble and sorrow. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. The heavenly shepherd does not always keep his sheep from sorrow, but he is with them in sorrow. And it goes on. I love the bit about preparing the way for us, and that we shall be with God in the end, because this ride in flesh, bone and blood is just temporary. It's completely temporary, and we act out a drama as if actors on a stage. And the more you're feeling the unreality of this world, the best, because it is unreality. When people die, they feel it almost as if they're coming out of a video game, and we accord it massive reality, but actually it's not reality. The only reality is actually God, where we need to anchor ourselves. And by reading the Psalms, you can anchor yourself there. Or even there's YouTube